Lumafusion, the new art of editing.
Hi, this is Cinema 5D. My name is Nino Leitner. I'm very happy to present you an interview that I just did with Charlotte Bruce Christensen, the director of photography of A Quiet Place, a post-apocalyptic horror movie by John Krasinski, which was a huge box office hit last year. It was shot on film, and there's a lot of things that Charlotte has to say about making the movie. Enjoy. Thanks for taking the time.
You're very welcome.
Are you in Denmark right now?
I'm in Atlanta. We just been home in Denmark for Christmas and New Year and just go back on Wednesday.
Okay.
Family.
Well, I'm calling from Vienna, Austria, so yeah.
Oh, gosh, so you're over there.
Yes. All right. I actually just rewatched A Quiet Place a couple of days ago as preparation for this interview, and I have to say it really holds up as a great piece of film, a great film and a great piece of cinematography even after the third viewing. So.
Oh, fun. Oh, good. That's a test. Good then. Yeah.
Well, it definitely left a huge impact on a large audience. I think it did really well at the box office as well. Is this something you expected when you were working on this?
No. I think we were all, John Krasinski, the director, was always very excited about the idea, and we all were. So we approached it as not a small movie, but an art piece almost, like So I don't think it was ever made, that any of us thought it was gonna, earn that much money and sell that many tickets. But obviously, perhaps the producers did, and they did well in thinking that,
Well, it feels like it was when you watched the movie. Not only because of the remoteness of the film setting, but it certainly feels like as if it was a small crew working on this, as a very small independent film that, of course, has big names attached to it. Was it really like that?
It was in many ways. There was a simplicity to the way we made it, that made it feel like an independent and smaller movie. Yet it was still a studio movie. Paramount Pictures were behind it. But what made it kind of feel intense and like small was that John and the location team found this amazing location upstate New York. So everything is shot on this location. There's a couple of sets that are like an hour or two north of there. But it meant that the crew was traveling up there, and we settled down. It wasn't a huge crew. We only had there was 4 people in the cast, main cast, and a couple of other names on there. But it was a small cast, and so it just made it feel small. We didn't have a big stage to do the few sets that we had on stage. There was a nearby riding arena, so we just built those 3 sets in this riding arena, and so it made it kind of feel very independent and like a small family that was just really excited about this project and this idea. It's a high concept project, so the idea, and John Krasinski being, he's a man full of energy, and it kind of gives something to everybody that, the people behind it really believes in it. And so it felt like an independent movie. Yeah,
so how did you initially get involved with the project? I know that you met Emily, or became friends with Emily Blunt on the set of Girl on the Train, is that right?
Yes, so we met on that movie and established a really close relationship, and I am just really fond of her. She's an amazing actress and a good friend as well. So she called me I remember it was summer and I was back home in Denmark, and she sent a text. So we chatted, and she said, "Well, my husband John Krasinski has found a script that he wants to rewrite, and I just think you two should chat, and can I send you his number?" And put down the phone, and John called like literally 30 minutes later or something, and he did the first pitch, which was a year before we started shooting the movie. So yeah, the project came by through Emily, and it was her idea to put us together.
Great. And then it took. I mean, it came into a real project quite quickly. Is that right? I mean, that you only also had only 30 shooting days when you were actually starting to shoot, right?
Yeah. It took about a year to get everything in place. So we shot the following summer, but yes, once we got the project and the budget and the locations and all that in place, we only had 30 shooting days. So it was a fast shoot, and it's only there was I think it was a $17 million budget, and and obviously some of that had to go to the VFX, and there was a character that had to, or the creature had to be built, and so some of the money obviously had to go to that. So it was a very tight schedule, which was probably the biggest challenge of this entire shoot. Was it takes place over 2 days. Well, the opening is quite a few days before, but then once we get into the movie, it's over 2 days. So to try and make this work with the continuity of the light and the night and all that was a challenge.
Well, I guess the limitation also is a benefit because, like in many horror films, you probably were limited in the amount of visual effects shots you could do, right, because of the budget. So
yeah, we had a count of like 50 shots or something. So we sat down, John and I and producers, and we're like, well, this one we have to see the creature, and this one we have to see the creature. I think we ended up with a few more than that, but everything was tight.
Yeah.
Everything was tight.
A Quiet Place is really an unusual kind of film, also because of the fact that it's indeed very quiet, because of the necessity of the characters to make no noises in order to survive. I wondered, because of that sensory deprivation in the audio department, that also automatically means that the audience focuses more of its attention on the visuals. So it automatically becomes a more visual film than your average movie, I think. After reading the script for the first time, how did you go about actually planning the look of the film together with John Krasinski?
We had a clear overall vision for the movie, which was, he always thought about it from the very beginning as a very cinematic piece, and a piece that needed to, really take in the landscapes. And he showed me some, a couple of his reference movies, which were big movies like No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood and Jaws, all shot on film. So, but we looked at those films, and it's not that they were direct references, but there was something about these movies that he felt like they have a certain confidence. And so we kind of took that word and said, well, of these movies, what we needed to kind of learn or look into is like, how do we create that confidence? That it seems solid, and so there was that kind of confidence word that we really wanted to try and explore. And then on top of that, he gave me a few things like, the family portrait is, we wanted to kind of give that very poetic approach, which was interesting to match that poetic approach with the horror creature elements of things. So there was like it was a mix of two genres, and that obviously gave me a lot to work with, alongside the whole concept of the movie, where there's very, very little dialogue, and that the cast communicate the sign language. So that was another element that I needed to really consider and think about how to make that work.
Mm. One of the first things I thought when I watched the first scenes of the film for the first time, when I saw it for the first time, was, okay, you realize that something is going on with sound. People are not allowed to be loud. And then as a cinematographer myself, I also am like, oh, interesting, because that, of course, influences what kind of lenses you choose, your framing, how far you can be away or have to be away from your subject matter. How did all of that go into consideration when actually planning it, and did you storyboard the film?
We didn't storyboard the film. There was a desire from producers in the studio to storyboard some of the creature scenes, just to figure out this whole, how many shots is it and budget and all that. But it never really worked for John to storyboard these things. He wanted to approach it with a more free. He wanted the freedom to just discover, what is this character, what is this creature going to do in the scene when I start rehearsing it with Emily and the rest of the cast. So it didn't work for him to storyboard. So we did some, but we never really used them. So it was a very organic process. John, as everybody knows, is a great actor as well, and that's what he's been doing. He's done a couple of movies before this, but he's developed as an actor, and I'm working with actors who are directing. It seems that it's, they're used to that kind of responding to things on the set, and I think that's what we did. Obviously, we planned certain things. There were some shots that he had in mind from writing the script, and so those shots we would, I would then build other shots around it, and we'd talk about it. I would offer it up, and he would, confirm it, or so it was a very organic process, which kind of worked really well for this, because we wanted to keep that poetic feel and that truthful atmosphere, and that it was a true story that this family really did. So we didn't want the horror approach with the more traditional low angles, wide angles for horror movies. There are a couple of ends, but that wasn't what we wanted to do. So it was an organic process. No storyboards. Some days we had a couple of shot lists, but not like this is what we're doing. It was it worked out on set.
Did you find yourself being limited or challenged by the sound design? Because of course I noticed that, of course, you kind of always had to be close with the camera to the characters with wider lenses, right? In order to be able to hear them on screen.
Yeah. No, I was definitely challenged by that, just because it started another process for me, just realizing, well, what is it, the energy of the sound design, it really also depends on where do we place that lens. Like, as you say rightly, if we place the lens really close to somebody, there will always be a sound. Even though somebody's trying to be quiet, if you're close, you'll hear, movements and clothes and feet in sand. You would hear, there would be a proper sound design. Whereas if you had that same size image, but on a long lens further back, there would be a cut and sound and no sound. So I was really challenged by just considering and imagining, what the sound should do or could do in certain places, and then placing the lens accordingly. So on this one, more than any other movie I've done, that thing of being wider lens close or further, or longer lens further back, had was more important than some others, where sometimes that's more about it being pretty, or you want to isolate the character, but you could still have the sound close, because that's just what you do with movies. It was really important on this project.
With this film, I feel like it has so many strong scenes, which, by themselves, like, for example, of course, the now infamous bathtub scene, can become movie history. Did you feel like that when you were shooting them? Did you feel like there is a potential to something bigger?
Yes and no. I don't think I kind of thought this could be, history. I don't think I ever dared to think things like that. But I do recall that, looking through the camera and shots like the top shot of the bathtub and Emily Blunt is lying and she does that scream, and that light that's flickering is one side, that I do recall that I stepped down from the camera and ran into the monitors where John was, and was like, we all felt like that was special. That was something crazy. And I remember Emily turned up, that morning before that scene, and she said to me, Charlotte, get your shit together and I'm going to do this 3 times. So don't come and say that some lighting didn't work. Get your stuff together when you're ready. We're going to do this. I'm not going to keep screaming forever all afternoon. So I knew it was kind of limited in terms of, the number of times. But anyway, I think already take one, she just delivered that, and John and Emily being a couple, they already, they'd discussed things closely beforehand. But I remember stepping down from the camera, I ran in, and she came and was like, did that work? And we were like, oh yeah. That worked. We were all very excited. So we definitely knew that that was, a special moment for us in our movie, but not that it would be like something that people would recognize that one shot and then know that that is the movie, which I feel it is now. If you see that shot, people know, oh, that's A Quiet Place. That's pretty cool.
That is really cool. You obviously decided to shoot on film, which is, I mean, you're no stranger to film. Of course, you shot many projects on film. I saw in your filmography. But why did you decide to shoot on film for this particular project? Because I think it's probably, from a producer's point of view, with a movie that maybe 50% of which plays in darkness, it's kind of a daring thing to do, right?
Oh yeah, and it did take some persuasion to and explanation to try and persuade producers to shoot on film. But I felt from the very beginning that the reference movies that John was showing me and the things that he was saying, the things that I started developing, and the view and the landscapes that was around this barn and the anamorphic views and the warmth that we wanted. He wanted this family to really have a warm feel to it. That it's all about love. It's all about, that's why they survived. So it needed to be a warm barn. The feel from the barn needed to be warm and all that. So something, and then there was a lot of makeup because people have been living for quite some time with not a lot of washing and not a lot of haircuts and. So obviously the sunburned look was all makeup and, the dirt and all that. And just knowing that we had to do so many real close-ups because of sound, I just thought, all these factors really just speak very well to shooting, on 35 millimeter. So I discussed it with John and he was like, well, why? And, so I first of all sold it to him, and he kind of bought into it and felt that was a great idea, and it all was what he wanted. So together, we wrote a letter to the producers and explained why. And it was a bit of a fight, obviously, budget and numbers versus digital numbers, and how much do we shoot and all that. But in the end, I think now, knowing what the project became and the look of the movie, I think everybody's really happy about that decision, and it was true what we said. It goes directly for the look that we want rather than spending more time in the DI creating it. But I love digital too. It's just, I don't know, I end up on projects that just calls for 35 millimeter. It's just, and I do love it. I do love working with it. I love working with the light meter. I feel there's a simplicity to it that I like. But it doesn't mean that I don't want to shoot things in digital.
To me, it's just interesting with all the digital tools available. It still seems so hard to make something really look like film. And there's nothing like, and I saw you said that in another interview, and I completely agree. I think there's nothing like the blackness of film. There's a specific kind of blackness in film which makes it look so real and organic and also scary. There's literally nothing, because kind of with digital you always know you could make it you could brighten it up, you could see whatever is there. With black, with film, it's somehow that's it, and it has a quality that's hard to describe.
But if you shoot a black or shooting shadows and blackness in digital, if you lift that, it becomes gray.
Yeah, it's moist.
Noisy. If you lift film black, it becomes grainy.
Yeah.
Which is more alive. Not that you ever want to lift. If you choose to make something black, it's because it should be black, hopefully.
Yeah.
You don't really want to lift it. But in any case, it's just more alive. I don't know what it is. And black was certainly a character in this movie because we have certain scenes where they go into this basement and it's completely black. It's not like film black. There's one scene where he's carrying her after he finds her with the baby, and he carries them into the basement. And we decided to make that black. They just walk through one little sliver of light, and otherwise it's sound. And as you said, it just has a difference. It becomes alive. It just works well.
Yeah. Is it difficult working with a director that's also one of the main characters, especially when shooting on film? Because obviously you need to show him the video tab after the take, right? You have to. I mean, usually, I mean, I know from my film school times, shooting on film, that that video tab is often not of the greatest quality. I'm sure you had an HD at least, but still, I mean, it's different from seeing something on a pristine 4K monitor.
Yeah, no, it is. It's even with the HD tabs, it's not a great image. So I think it somehow helped, John being an actor, knowing his performance doing it, not needing, obviously he wanted to go and see it, and he wanted to see it in the environment and the lighting and all the rest of it. But I think he wasn't kind of judging only from the image, which is not a great image. So I think it kind of worked out really well on that project. Whereas maybe some other directors really need to see it on that monitor, and then it is an issue that you can't really see things. It's hard to see focus. It's hard to see, the real blacks won't really come up the way it will on film. So, but I think for him, he was very aware of what was happening on set with his own performance and with the others. So it worked all right actually on that one.
Apart from shooting on film itself, I think you also were quite daring by using a lot of red light in the movie. I mean, knowing what red looks like, or what red can look like being filmed on film, but even on digital,
Yeah.
it's probably the hardest color to choose, right?
It's the hardest color to choose, and and it wasn't like a choice. That was like it was in the script. The red is the warning, is the danger, and it's a character in the movie. So I needed to make that work, whether on film or digital. I needed to make that work. So I did a lot of testing, also because the light bulbs, not just red light falling on a face, but also the actual light bulb. We wanted them to come out red, and so, but we also needed them to light because we have these white shots where this Christmas chain all needs to illuminate. I mean, how was I going to get some red light in there just to only fall in a path and in a wide shot without adding light? And we didn't want to put too much water on because then they would turn out white if they were too bright. So there was a whole level of what exposure on film. With the anamorphic lenses, I did shoot some scenes on spherical to get a little bit more stuff. But that is the level where I can expose for the red and still get some effect on the sand, but not overexpose the actual light bulb. So there was a lot of exposure testing going on with that. And then, as you say, red light falling on a face or on an object, it just looks slightly out of focus. It looks soft, and it's hard to deal with when it's the color that lights the key color. So what I figured is that actually for the basement scenes we were supposed to only do red lights, but I asked John, and he was okay with that, to add a couple of candle lights, which gave me another source, which was warm candle, not red, but very warm. And it kind of triggered the eye a little bit because then you have that line that is perfectly sharp. So I would put that line somewhere else in the frame to kind of balance out somehow. And it just, I don't know if it doesn't make it more in focus, it just triggers the eye a little bit, and somehow it works.
Yeah, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but some of the shots in that scene reminded me of 2001 Space Odyssey, where you have the red light in the face, which was probably the last time I've seen something shot on film entirely lit with a red light. So that was kind of cool. Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm glad. But it's always tricky, especially shooting on film, because I don't know until we'll see in 3 days' time. So going home that evening, putting my head on the pillow, like, oh my gosh.
Did you have a lab close by, or did you have to send it to LA?
We sent it to New York. So the Kodak just opened a lab in New York. Okay. And so, but before we get it in there, it's definitely 2 days before you see it. And those scenes were in this water tank that I know I wasn't going to be very popular if I was going to ask to reshoot those scenes. But I don't know, I also like that thing of not knowing everything. There's a lot of pressure coming along, but there's also a creativity and you go for something, you plan something, and you go for it, which I really like. But luckily, it came out okay with it.
It absolutely did.
Yeah.
Talking about the look of the film overall, I mean, it doesn't look like your average horror flick, right? It's very saturated, very deep colors during the day scenes. So I thought it's an interesting choice because it makes what's coming even more surprising to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've never shot a horror movie before, and I'm not a big horror movie fan. You know, the good ones and the classic ones, I love watching them, but I'm not like, it's not my personal genre as such. So approaching this project, listening to John and his desire to really tell the story of the truthful family, not that it needed to be kind of documentary kind of feel, but still it was like a warmth and there was a truth to it. You know, the warmth of a barn with candlelight, with with all that, it is a warm environment. That is the truth of a wooden barn with candles. It would have been fake to me to try and make it desaturated, and so we went with the story more than with the genre. And I think that's also interesting for any movie, is that whatever the story and the locations, if it is a truthful, like if it's a story taking place in this world, that it just naturally takes you away from what you expect from a genre. So I think that was we just went with the truthfulness from the locations, and it was when the director tells me it feels like poetic. It feels like some poetry mixed with a classic movie and an epic movie with the landscapes, and immediately that kind of gives me some kind of warmth. And then the contrast, the nights, which are cooler, obviously we call it like a silver cool blue rather than a blue moon. It was like there was a silver coolness to that. So we had that contrast of the night and the creature being, shining that blue colors, and so it kind of had that contrast of warmth and blues.
I think also of course the location, but also the set design and the lens choice led to it feeling very organic, it's a story about a family more than it is a horror movie, right? So
it is, and John always, the director always said that. It's first and foremost, it's a story about a family surviving in this world of terror. And when we first discussed it, I remember I had a long conversation with John about. And when I first read the script, my response was, this is the world we live in. There's so much terrorism going on. We don't know when it attacks. How do we survive? Do we stop sending our kids to concerts around the world because there's been terrible happenings, and shootings happening at concerts and things like that? Or do we live our lives the way we have to? And there's that big question mark. How do you survive in a world of terror when you don't know when it attacks, and what is it that makes it attack? That's what the whole movie is about. He's trying to figure out why don't they eat their killings? Why don't they eat the people they just kill and they run away? There was like a bigger question mark to it that is very that is kind of a universal question at the moment, I think.
Absolutely, and I think that makes it a great movie, because it's a great movie. It's not just a horror movie, it's just a great film with a great story, and that's what it should be. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I've heard that there's going to be a sequel, and I think you've been asked this question before, but do you know if you're going to be lensing this one?
I've heard about it. I don't know that there's a script yet and everything, but at this point, it doesn't seem that I'm doing it. I haven't been asked yet, so we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
I haven't read the script yet, but I heard from some of the cast members that things are going to happen this spring. But who knows? I don't.
Great.
Yeah.
What are you working on right now, or what's coming next from you?
So right now I'm kind of in between. I just finished a movie just before Christmas called The Banker, directed by writer George Nolfi. And so right now I'm reading and hopefully going to do a couple of commercials. So yeah,
Yeah.
just enjoying the new year.
Cool. My last question. Our website is for, a lot of people who read our website are people who started out or people who started in the DSLR filmmaking days and have evolved from there. The site has existed for 10 years, and a lot of people have gone on to do bigger things, and some people are making their breaks into the feature film world. What is a tip, or what are some tips and tricks that you would recommend to people who are starting out or who are looking to make their break into the feature film industry? What should they focus on?
Um, Whether you feel like you are in a position that you can be selective or not, I think it is very important to be selective and to read scripts and feel that this is something that I believe in. This is something that I feel like I have something to offer. It's that you sign on projects, big or small, that is never going to be an excuse. Because sometimes you're so eager to get into the feature film industry that you do anything to get that first job, and I think that's not a good thing because if you don't get that first project in and you're really proud of it, you don't want to go out there and go, yeah, it didn't, I didn't really like the script, but and I wish I could have made it. Like you always want to be really behind the projects that you do, whether it's short films or features. And I think if you do that with your short films, you just make sure you read the scripts and you're honest to what you think about it. And even if you sign on something and you have conversations with the director, be honest so that you can offer up and give who you are. And if you do that with your short films, I really truly believe that you will be projected in that project, and that's why somebody's going to hire you for a feature film because you stay true to who you are as an artist. So just don't chase it like on anything. You really got to be proud of what your eye and each artist has an eye, and it's not that we can't change it. You can sign on a project like this. I'm not a horror film person, but I signed on that project still bringing part of me, thinking they hired me because they wanted that contrast. And so I believe that I still need to bring who I am, like the warmth and the 35 millimeter and all the little things, but still adapting it to the director and the vision. So I think, always bring a little bit of who you are.
Great.
Don't rush it.
Thank you for that. Do you think a formal film education is something that is still necessary today, or you think people can make it by themselves, just making short films?
Yes, I really, more and more so because of, today it's so easy to get access to digital cameras and you can even make an amazing looking movie on a mobile phone. So I don't think you need to go to film schools. It depends on who you are and what your desires are. I went to film school and I really enjoyed it. I love the study of film history, and I love going back in time. And if you kind of respond to these things and use the past to create the artist that you are, there's something great about film schools because you can study at home, but it's just a different thing to have lectures and things. Whereas if you're a doer and you just want to learn by doing, I wouldn't spend my time going to film school. I'll go out and make short films. Just as long as you believe in those stories, you really feel, don't sign on things that you don't believe in. It's not going to bring you any further, I think. You got to be proud of, even if it isn't your project or you changed yourself, you just still gave yourself, you can be proud of the results.
Great. Thank you, Charlotte. The tips, very inspirational.
I'm glad. Hope it's useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. And
You're very welcome. Anytime.
I hope we can do it soon again. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
On our phone or on an iPad with Lumafusion, and I just think it's a game changer for the next generation of film.
Thanks. If you have special tips or experience with Lumafusion, maybe you can post a comment for us.
If you enjoyed the video, leave a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a thumbs up.
Lumafusion with the help of Affinity Photo and inside Lumafusion itself.
Lumafusion, the new art of editing.